It's the beginning of a new volume. We're only about 1/3 done with this Everdark full cast recording. I'm over 100 chapters into the sequel as well. And of course, if you hear this after 2023, I may have finished with Everdark Academy and be on to the third story in the Everdark world. We do have some edits coming up in the chapters to come, including this episode and the next one for Sexy Times. There are, in fact, 5 sexy chapters in Volume 4, since the 2 vampire couples' relationships are definitely progressing.
Last on Everdark, Julian fretted as he realized that the immortal Callie can simply move from body to body, never dying if they are injured or killed. What happens to the souls of the people in the other bodies is left unclear. Balthazar and Damon return from their time with the Callie vampires. Balthazar has discovered cognac mixed with corpse powder can make him delightfully drunk. But now he has to sober up to prepare for Christian's parents coming to dinner. Damon and Julian go to spend some time alone together. Everdark, Episode 46, Saw. Damon lifted Julian into his arms as they walked down the hallways towards the back door and the coach house. Julian let out a surprised laugh, but wound his long legs around Damon's waist easily. Julian's cheeks flushed red, and he did glance around to see who noticed this. It was adorable that Julian cared what others would think, though these vampires seemed slightly more conservative than he was used to, as the reaction to his nudity had told him.
"What's up?"
Julian asked, as he easily put his arms around Damon's neck. One of his eyebrows rose up.
"Is something wrong?"
"No," he answered, and said nothing else, because he sensed if he did that he would reveal to both of them what was on his mind and in his heart. He wanted to lose himself in Julian's body, but his fledgling was having none of it.
"Huh. So, you're all good?"
Another raised eyebrow. "I am with you," Damon stated, as if that was all there was to say. Julian blinked a moment, his eyes going soft with tenderness, and the words had the intended effect of moving him as well as distracting him. But his fledgling was determined to find out what was really going on with him and wouldn't be distracted, even by great truths between them.
"You're upset about Callie, maybe? Upset they took Heath? Upset they betrayed you?"
Julian prodded. "Loyalty," Damon said, the word feeling torn out of him. The others were just as difficult. Respect. Friendship. Love.
"Love?"
Julian's head lowered. "Not that kind of love, my fledgling." He kissed Julian's cheek.
"No, actually, I did think that."
Julian admitted.
"You 11 immortals have been together for ages. You could have had love affairs."
"We did. Some of us. But it is not like what I feel for you," Damon answered. He felt Julian still in his arms and studied his face.
"I thought you said you weren't sure what was between us. All those complications with you being king and all."
"I stand by what I said, but I cannot deny that you are integral to me in a way I did not understand then. I believe my understanding will only grow. Do you not feel the same?" Damon asked. It was only after he asked it that he realized he could be setting himself up for a blow. Julian was determined to be independent. Julian swallowed deeply.
"I don't think there is any me without you, and that scares the living crap out of me. Will this change? Will it get easier? When you left me here to go after Callie, I was going crazy. I don't want to feel..."
"Feel what?"
"I lost my parents, Damon. Because I was a kid when it happened, I couldn't believe they were gone."
Julian's gaze was suddenly distant.
"I held on even tighter to Christian and his parents after that. Then David tried to take Christian from me, and..."
He shuddered. "You were willing to die, and die terribly for Christian," Damon acknowledged softly. Julian focused on him.
"You're becoming family to me, Damon. I can feel it.
Damon kissed him. Not a passionate kiss, a tender one. "I know you are afraid to lose again. You will not lose me."
"Can you promise that? Really promise that?"
Julian's eyes flickered over his face. "Yes, Julian, I can." Julian shook himself.
I have to believe you. I want to believe you.
Time will tell. They passed out the back door and into the dew-drenched garden. He could smell dawn on the horizon. Julian would soon become sleepy, whether he wanted to sleep or not. It was hard to believe he was just a few days old. He'd watched so many other fledglings develop, not his own, for sure, but Julian was so different still. Julian's expression turned from thoughtful to serious again, focused on him.
You expected to come back and find the immortal Callie and the others waiting for you. They disappointed you.
His fledgling was no longer guessing. He felt the light brush of Julian's mind against his own. He grasped it as if he was catching Julian's hand. He held it tight to him, but he didn't want his thoughts rifled through, no matter how gently or kindly meant. I think I have disappointed myself. I thought I was worthy of these things from them. Evidently not, Damon answered simply as he shifted Julian tighter against his chest. Again, Julian's expression became tender. His fingers linked behind Damon's neck.
You are worthy of those things, Damon. You're incredible.
My fledgling, Damon said with a smile.
I'm not just saying that because I'm your fledgling.
Julian protested. He rested his forehead against Julian's. I know, but you are biased.
Only because you're worth being biased for.
Julian kissed his forehead, as if he were the fledgling and Julian the master.
Callie sounds like a bad actor. Don't base your worth on what they've done. Balthazar loves you now, and he isn't a fan of anyone in authority.
Iros and Seer were always the closest to me, defending me perhaps beyond what they should have.
Balthazar is pretty awesome, and from what Sophia tells me about Seer, she sounds like it too. So I think if they're willing to vouch for you, then it's because they know you're worthy of it.
Julian protested. They'd reached the coach house, and one of the acolytes opened the door for them before Damon had to shoulder it open. They clearly had been alerted to them coming and were on the lookout. This pleased him. He gave a nod in passing, with Julian calling out their thanks as Damon carried him up the stairs to their rooms. There was a sense of relief and comfort the moment the doors of their rooms shut behind them. He could block out the entire world and just forget everything but Julian. The pressure in the back of his mind that told him that other immortals were out there, some hiding, some having forgotten who they were, others imprisoned, pulled at him. But he would wreck himself on the rocks if he thought too closely on that. His power was not where it needed to be to solve all these seemingly impossible problems. But he could be. He absolutely would be. Damon buried his face in Julian's chest and just breathed in and out. Julian wrapped his arms more securely around his neck, fingers sifting through his hair.
What do you need?
Julian asked softly.
Tell me what you need.
To feel you against me. To know you're safe. Damon's words were blurred as he still had his face pressed against Julian's front.
Of course, yes, whatever you need.
Julian murmured as he kissed Damon's head and ran his fingers through his hair. He carried Julian into their bedroom and tenderly laid his fledgling down on the bed. Julian only reluctantly let go of him, but he finally did unwind his body from Damon's. He sprawled backwards on the white comforter. He looked rumpled and beautiful. All mine.
Yours, huh?
Julian's right eyebrow rose in amusement, as did his lips. Yes. Those bright eyes narrowed, though the smile still remained.
Really?
Do you doubt it? Would you want it otherwise? Considering what Julian had just admitted to about where Damon was in his heart, he knew the answers to these questions. Yet it amused him how Julian twisted and turned to make it seem as if he was not Damon's.
No, just...
You think you lose yourself if you are mine, but you do not. It is what has been fated, Damon said simply. You cannot fight fate.
Fight fate?
Still, Julian gave him that narrow-eyed look which only disappeared when Damon kissed him, and then the smile broke the suspicion, and Julian laughed.
Was this all seriously fated? I mean, you mentioned something about this, but you didn't know me when I woke you up.
Julian pointed out.
You didn't think that I would make it after I drank your blood. That's why you withdrew from me.
Do not mention that. It causes me such shame. Damon dragged his fingers through Julian's hair, relishing the soft locks. Julian turned his face into his hand. He kissed Damon's palms. Those kisses were like butterfly wings fluttering against his skin. His stomach muscles tightened at the sweetness of it.
Do you think I'm damaged because of it?
Julian demanded to know. What? Of course not. You are perfect, my fledgling. There is nothing whatsoever wrong with you. Damon was quick to assure him. It was the truth, but even if it weren't, he would find no flaw in Julian.
So why didn't you take me with you?
A very mulish look crossed that lovely face. To fight Kali?
Yes, to fight Callie. You took Balthazar?
Again, even though Julian was lying on his back, his chin was tipped up.
I fought really well on the roof at my place. You said so.
Damon's fingers left Julian's cheeks and trailed down his throat. He knew that though Julian was very adventurous and did not often look before he leaped, he was sensible of his own limitations. So surely he knew the difference between fighting 2 vampires and going after an immortal. I am sorry I left you, my fledgling, but I would not take you into a fight with Kali, Damon answered. Tears were in Julian's eyes, and he felt his fledgling's confusion for them being there. Julian switched to speaking out loud. It was revealing when he chose to do this.
This is what I mean about me not being normal. My emotions are all over the place. I still feel hurt that you should have taken me, but I know you shouldn't have.
Julian gripped the front of his vest and twisted the material.
Every time you leave, I feel abandoned. Just like when you turned your back on me in Nightfallen. Teach me how to not feel this.
Damon stood between Julian's legs, feeling the heat from them, seeing the beauty spread before him. Had he damaged Julian? As I said before, only time will show you that I am not abandoning you, he finally answered. That I would never abandon you.
Again? That you would never abandon me again?
Julian's voice was hoarse. He rubbed his tears away.
Damn it. You don't need this now. I know you're feeling really messed up about Callie. You don't need my shit. This isn't even logical.
It is logical. You felt alone. You were alone in a frightening situation, believing you were facing death with Christian's life on the line, Damon answered. You could hate me for having done that.
I couldn't hate you. You did your part of the bargain. We didn't know one another then,
Julian said, continuing to swipe away the remnants of angry, frustrated tears. His head was to the side, his neck exposed, the pulse point right there, begging to have his lips pressed against it. His fingers slid down and rested against that spot. You were always my fledgling, no matter how long you would have lived, he whispered. I forgot that. Julian turned to look up at him again.
You gave me the strength I needed to save Christian. You couldn't come with me. And when I reached out to you, you reached back.
In the end, he admitted.
You didn't have to at all.
But Julian was still unhappy. He still felt uncertain. Had Damon damaged his fledgling? Again, this question sliced through him. So he opened his mind this time and let Julian fully in. He watched as Julian's purple irises turned blood red, as their minds linked fully. His fledgling's lips parted and he breathed out words that came from Damon's mind.
You want to be with me. That's what you want. All the time. You have other things you have to do, but you want to be here.
You are my reason for being. All the rest, it is hard to have lost something that you thought was so certain. But to be certain that something will never change, will always stay the same, is to thumb one's nose at fate, Damon answered. He cupped Julian's face. But know this, I want you by my side for all that is to come. Julian's brow furrowed, lips parting as he realized.
Even if it's tragic.
Yes, for I am a selfish creature, and I cannot bear to let you go, Damon admitted. Julian's mind voice was surprisingly certain and determined as he answered,
Good, because I can't do this without you. Can't just simply go on without you. And that, fuck, it's too much. I feel eons in you. I feel things I can't even understand in you. It's like looking into time itself, and I'm too small, and you're too vast.
He gently winnowed the connection between them. The red glow faded, and Julian blinked until his eyes were back to purple. He drew in a breath as if he had surfaced from under deep water. He looked up at Damon in wonder.
What are you?
Julian asked. An immortal.
You're more than that.
The first among equals.
You're more than that, too.
Instead of answering his question, Damon brought his left wrist to his mouth and bit into his own flesh until he tasted the rich, coppery blood. He then extended that wrist and held it over Julian's lips. The blood dripped down on Julian's parted lips. I want to be with you. Always you, Damon murmured. Julian wrapped one hand around Damon's wrist and brought it down to his mouth. He felt the pull of his blood from his veins as Julian suckled. His fledgling's eyes closed, and he practically curled around Damon's arm. With his free hand, he petted Julian's head. He could feel himself flowing into Julian's body, nourishing him and bringing them closer together. He leaned down and kissed Julian's temple, which caused Julian to take a deeper swallow. Seer told me about you so long ago, but how could I ever believe you were real? I wanted you to exist too much. He rested his forehead against the side of Julian's head. I had given up hope, but you came and found me.
Like Sleeping Beauty.
Julian laughed even as he fed. Damon's eyebrows rose. Who is he?
She.
Julian chuckled.
And she was woken by a kiss.
I like her already. He kissed Julian's temple again, his mouth lingering there as he savored the taste and feel of Julian's skin. Julian's head fell back, letting Damon's wrist go. His lips were painted red with blood. His eyelids were still closed.
Feels like electricity running through me whenever I drink from you. Like I can sense myself changing.
You are growing stronger, slowly but surely.
Then I can help you more.
Julian murmured. Damon petted him again. You just need to exist and be with me, Julian. That is enough. That is how you help me. A smile crossed Julian's lips and his eyelids cracked.
Dawn's coming, isn't it?
Yes. The sun is sending out her first rays, and you wish to sleep.
I want to stay awake with you. I want to give you what you need.
Julian reached over to his pants and tugged at them.
You didn't bring me in here to talk, or just talk. You need this. You need me.
I do. Always. My dearest acolytes, I regret to inform you that this podcast has been edited to conform to this platform's rules and regulations. Obviously, sexy vampire interludes are not appreciated by these plebeians. This episode has been cut to be acceptable to audiences of all ages. Not to worry. If you are interested in hearing the full episode with all the steamy parts included, you can purchase a monthly membership at wraithrain.com. Not ready to commit to a monthly membership? Then please visit the shop at wraithrain.com, where the full episodes are available for sale in audiobook format. Join us next time for episode 47, Slow Burn. The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thelis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain.
This is chapter 47, which means there will be exactly 100 more episodes of Everdark to go. This story is 147 chapters, but that is not the end. Everdark Academy is currently being written and posted on wraithrain.com, chapter by chapter, and when that's done, I'll just go on to the next story in the Everdark world, so you don't have to be afraid of getting to the end. I'm planning much more to come.
Last on Everdark, Damon and Julian had a romantic morning together. Both of them exposed some of the fears that they have. Julian fears losing himself to Damon, and Damon realizes that things are not as he thought they were with the Immortals. but both of them find the ultimate comfort in one another. Now we turn back to Balthazar and Christian. Everdark, Episode 47, Slow Burn. Oh, my head, Balthazar groaned. He flopped down on his back on his bed, feet hanging off the edge, one hand covering his forehead where the constant throbbing seemed to emanate from. He had a bag of blood in his other hand, hoping that drinking something untainted by corpse powder might stop the unending banging that seemed to be going on with his brain. He closed his eyes and tried to ignore the first headache he'd had in 200 years.
Let that be a lesson to you. Anything that has corpse powder in it, don't drink,
Christian said with an amused lilt in his voice. He thought that his fledgling would be more judgmental about his drinking, but Christian just seemed amused by the after effects of it. That was good. Balthazar was the indulgent type of all sorts of things, corpse powder merely being the latest. The sad thing is that while I agree with you, Christian, I know myself all too well. At some point, I will forget this pain and seek out that cognac again, Balthazar said with startling honesty. He heard a choking laugh coming from the direction of his bathroom. He wasn't sure what Christian was doing in there, but there was some rustling. He had expected that after Christian had helped him to his room, that the young man would abandon him for sleep in his own bedroom. Yet he still had to call the chef and make arrangements for the dinner, which would be made easier if he could question Christian about his parents' likes and dislikes. But his fledgling didn't like to make things easy on him, and the fact that he had waited until the last minute to plan this, well, he sort of felt he was getting what he deserved, even if the Vampire King had been the one to drag him out on this very informative and, dare he say it, fun adventure.
I can understand why you want to get drunk every once in a while. You just forgot what happens afterwards, that's all.
Being a mortal means experiencing pain as well as pleasure in equal measures. We immortals can have more fun in some ways, but I do think sometimes, because our pain threshold is so much higher, that our pleasure threshold is too, Balthazar admitted. He didn't open his eyes, but he was acutely aware that Christian was sitting on the edge of the bed right by him, on his bed, not going away. He felt Christian tugging at his hand, the hand that had the blood bag in it.
You should drink this. It might help your head,
Christian suggested. Balthazar made a whining sound, but he raised the blood bag to his lips and bit off the top before draining it in one swallow. I would offer to feed you, Christian, but I'm afraid my blood would poison you right now. Another chuckle from his usually humorless fledgling was a reward.
I'm actually fine. You just focus on recovering.
Christian then did this amazing thing. He touched Balthazar's shoulder and squeezed it gently. It was a tender touch, a touch of affection. It was not forced and it was not tentative. There was no hesitation to it. Balthazar's heart leapt up into his throat. He risked cracking open an eyelid and glancing over at Christian. His fledgling was exactly where he had pictured him, which was perched on the edge of his bed just half a foot away. Christian was gazing down at him with a rather indulgent look on his face. When he saw that Balthazar's eyes were opened, he smiled. Despite his massive headache, Balthazar felt like singing. Then Christian started speaking again, and he felt like he'd been baited and switched.
Sophia wants a cat. 2 cats.
Christian said.
And I think I'd like one as well. Maybe a Russian blue, or a Scottish fold, or an American shorthair, or...
Cats. Balthazar rocketed upwards only to let out a groan as it felt like his brain had turned to liquid in his skull and sloshed when he moved. He put both hands up to his temples and squeezed as he shut his eyes again tightly. What are you talking about? Can't have those animals. They aren't clean. There was a delighted laugh from Christian, as if he'd expected no other answer.
Actually, cats are very clean, and...
No. They track litter everywhere, and they lick their own butts, and then they lick you. More than that, they're... The bitter, coppery taste of fear rose in his throat, and he remembered his sister's cat that had pooped on his pillow and attacked his ankles. They're evil.
You did not just say cats are evil. The brave Lord Ravenscroft is afraid of fluffy kittens?
Christian's teasing was gentle but pointed.
You just went up against warrior skeletons.
He scowled without opening his eyes, because his head really did still hurt, though the blood had taken some of the throbbing away. I have lived for over 200 years, Christian. I know more about anything than you do simply from having existed longer. So when I say that cats are evil, I mean it. None shall enter Ravenscroft Manor, ever.
Sophia sees the future.
Christian pointed out slowly.
I don't think she'd ask for something she knew she wasn't going to get.
Balthazar opened his eyes again and cast an alarmed look at his fledgling. Christian had a point. Sophia did see the future, and she did know when certain things were to come to pass. Was his house to be infested with furry felines? No, this must be some kind of cosmic joke. She would not ask for the one animal that he could not abide. You don't like cats, do you, Christian? Balthazar asked. Christian had mentioned something about wanting a cat of his own, but he must have misheard that.
I was never allowed to have any pets. Not because my parents disliked animals or anything like that, but because they're both allergic, so we couldn't have a dog or cat. I did have some fish once, but those don't count. I admit that I've always wanted a cat.
Christian said with a shrug. Oh, I see.
You don't sound pleased,
Christian said, with a smile twitching at his lips. I was just imagining it for a moment. You and Fluffy, that's a cat's name, isn't it? Cuddled on the couch while I have to stand on the other side of the room from the deadly animal. You and Fluffy in bed together with her curled up behind your knees so that I must stand in the door to your bedroom and go no farther. You feeding Fluffy from the table and cooing over her, Balthazar said. Christian's smile was growing wider and wider as he spoke.
I see that Fluffy is a Balthazar deterrent.
Balthazar immediately scowled. Don't act as if that makes the cat more attractive. I will be quite hurt if you do. Truly. Christian rose from the bed, and Balthazar had a moment of panic. Was this cat so important to Christian? Was he annoyed by his refusal? But Christian appeared quite at ease, and not upset at all.
You need to call the chef,
Christian reminded him.
By the way, my mother and father adore prime rib, so that'd be a good choice for dinner. They're both fond of wine, white or red, but my mother adores champagne. My father hates green vegetables. I don't know why. It is completely and utterly ridiculous, but there it is. Otherwise, they're adventurous eaters, and I'm sure any chef you know will put together something delicious for them.
Balthazar blinked. Were they off the subject of cats? Was he so lucky that Christian would just drop this matter and somehow it would fade into the ether? After all, Christian had just told him exactly what the chef should make that night for dinner with no cat threats.
Why don't you call the chef while I draw a bath for you?
Christian started towards the bathroom door. Balthazar was swallowing, but he found himself saying, Will you be staying to take a bath too? Christian paused in the bathroom's doorway, and then slowly he turned his head to the side to look back over his shoulder at Balthazar.
Can I have a cat?
Christian asked. Balthazar felt like his throat was being squeezed by a very tight vice, but he got out in a wheezy, strained whisper. We can discuss it. Christian nodded his head sagely, and then went into the bathroom without answering whether he would be staying or not, to get wet and warm with Balthazar. Balthazar jumped to his feet. His head felt like it exploded, and he had to close his eyes tightly for a moment. But after a time, the world stopped spinning sickly, and he reached for his cell phone that he'd set to charging on the nightstand. If he could handle the dinner plans quickly, maybe he could somehow convince Christian to stay for just a little while. The thought of asking Christian to wash his back was more than a little intriguing. But would that push his reluctant fledgling too far, too fast? He didn't know. He would have to read the situation. Now that he knew about David, he understood so much more about Christian. He wished that David was still alive, so he could kill him. He dialed Michael Anders' phone number and got a very bleary-sounding chef. He started to rattle off exactly what he needed, which had the chef barking at him to be quiet for a moment. He needed to wake up, or otherwise he was going to treat this as a very bad dream and go back to bed. Finally, though, Michael was focused with laser-like intensity regarding this dinner party. He understood that it needed to be perfect. Balthazar related everything that Christian had told him about his parents' likes and dislikes, and the chef grunted his understanding. "It shall be done. I need to go to the market right now, so is there anything else?" Michael asked tersely. Balthazar pictured the man scowling into the darkness with his phone pressed against his ear. "No, I think that's it. But as I said, this is to impress my lover's parents," Balthazar explained again. "I'm not sure if they'll like me, so they must be lubricated with good food and even better wine to make this work." The very thought of alcohol right now had his stomach roiling, but he was certain that after another few bags of blood and a good night's sleep, and perhaps his back being washed by a certain fledgling, he would feel quite recovered by tomorrow night, or tonight rather, as it was already near dawn. The skin between his shoulder blades prickled as it always did when the sun touched the horizon. "Have I ever let you down?" Michael asked. "No, you haven't. But I know this is very last minute, and I consider it a challenge. Don't worry, Balthazar. Your lover's parents will be eating out of your hands, almost literally tonight," the chef said, and rang off. Balthazar went over to the small refrigerator in the corner of his room and took out 2 more bags of blood. Again, he ripped them open with his teeth and drank them both down. He grimaced. Cold blood was disgusting. His mouth tasted of sour metal. He poured himself a glass of water and drank that down too. He really needed a breath mint. Well, luckily, there was a roll of mints in the top drawer of his dresser. He popped 2 into his mouth and crunched them. He took a third for extra measure, followed by another chaser of water. The headache was getting better. Now it was just a low, dull throb that ran down the back of his neck into his spine, and his breath didn't smell like a carnivore's. No more corpse powder. Not for a while, anyways. He gave a mirthless smile as he hoped that Arceus decided to drink it and suffer like he had. He heard the splash of water against ceramic and knew that Christian was being as good as his word and drawing his bath. The bathroom door was half open. Christian had turned off the bathroom lights, but lit the many fat white candles that Balthazar had previously placed strategically around the bathroom. He loved nothing more than bathing in candlelight. There was something so soothing about it compared to modern electric lights, even on rheostats that couldn't be replaced. It seemed to slow him down. It didn't remind him of his first life when candles and gas were the only lights. He rarely thought back on that time, but somehow candlelight made things simpler for him. Electricity was wonderful, and he wouldn't want it to be gone, but it was fast-paced and made him move at that same speed. He lit the candles on the bedside tables and clicked off the lights in the bedroom too, before padding towards the bathroom's door. He expected to see a fully clothed Christian seated on the edge of the tub with his fingers in the stream of water from the faucet, testing the temperature. This was actually enough of a dream for him not to fantasize further. Christian was exactly how he had pictured, except he was wearing only one of Balthazar's silk robes, a pale green one. The robe only came down to Christian's knees, showing his shapely calves. It was loosely belted too, exposing a great deal of his fledgling's muscled chest.
"You'll catch flies if you let your mouth hang open like that,"
Christian said, without turning to face him. Balthazar shut his mouth with an audible click. He hadn't realized it had fallen open. Right. Very old-fashioned sentiment there, fledgling. Christian did turn his head towards him this time. There was a delightful blush on his cheekbones, and his gaze was almost shy.
"Something my grandmother used to say. I have to admit that your reaction to seeing me like this is quite gratifying."
Is this, I suppose, it's unexpected, but pleasant. Absolutely, wonderfully pleasant and unexpected, and
"You've lived 200 years, had countless lovers, and yet I'm still able to make you speechless. You must like me very much,"
Christian remarked as he went back to testing the water. The blush that crawled down his throat and disappeared beneath the robe showed that despite his cool words, he was more than moved by Balthazar's reaction. "I'm more than like you, Christian," Balthazar said simply. Christian stared at the water.
Yes.
I didn't fully understand what it would mean to have a fledgling. Balthazar forced the words out. I just assumed all the adoration came from the fledgling side. Not that you adore me. Not that you. Christian's head lowered, and he could see the swan-like curve of his neck. It was so vulnerable, so fragile, but he remained silent, listening intently to what Balthazar was saying. So he went on. I just assumed there must be no feelings from the master's side. I mean, other than naturally grew between two people. But that's not true. I'm not compelled to feel this about you, but this bond between us. You're a part of my soul. So how could you treat a person who is part of your soul like Roan did me and the others? It said far more than he intended to say, so he shut his mouth again. He swallowed deeply. What he had told Christian was the truth. He'd assumed that all the magic was on the one side and not the other. How could Roan torture them like he did if he had felt even a fraction of what Balthazar did for Christian? He was more broken than I understood if he did. Balthazar thought, if what I feel for Christian is normal between a master and fledgling, then Roan shouldn't have been able to do what he did to me and the others, not without something being truly wrong with him. Christian turned back towards him. His silver eyes, just like Balthazar's and every other vampire's, except for Damon's and Julian's, studied his face carefully. There was tenderness in that gaze, understanding too. Christian might be young in vampire years, but he was far more in tune than most 28-year-olds were, than perhaps even 200-year-old vampires are.
I have to remind myself to not think every person who cares for me is like David, that they could be more like Julian or my parents.
Christian murmured.
So I understand how confusing it is to feel one thing but to expect another, especially when that expectation is negative but the reality is positive.
I would have killed David, just like I did Roan to keep you safe, Balthazar said steadily. Christian's head jerked up.
No, I didn't want him dead. I just wanted him to stop. But he couldn't. He lost everything, so he was beyond desperate. He needed to make that loss mean something. I had to be worth everything he'd lost. Don't you see? He had to justify to himself why he'd done what he'd done.
What he did had nothing to do with you, Balthazar said firmly. People like that aren't well, Christian. It's not that you aren't worthy of great love or even obsession, but nothing David did was your fault, and what happened to him, while tragic, was a result of his own choices. Christian reached and turned off the water. The tub was perfectly filled so that two people could slip underneath the water and not have it overflow. Christian remained sitting on the edge of it, though, staring at the water, his fingers skimming the heated surface.
I normally don't move quickly in life. I had to think about things, study all the angles, consider all the consequences. Becoming a vampire was not something I got to choose. I mean, I did choose it. You asked me, and I consented.
Christian quickly amended. Heath and Celine didn't give you any choice. Didn't give Julian any choice either. I am the master of this house, and that is my fault, Balthazar said, and his lips flattened. This betrayal had gone on under his nose. He didn't like it. There might be other people that were traitors, and he had to figure out who those people were. He would be questioning everyone. I cannot tell you how sorry I am. I wanted you to become one of us. I fully intended to approach you at some point, but not like this. Never like this. Christian lifted his head, and there was a surprising small smile on his lips.
I don't regret it, Balthazar. Being a vampire is quite amazing. When I think of all the advantages I have now, the disadvantages too, but there's so much to learn, so much to experience, so much to explore. Speaker to the dead. Forget David for a moment. What if I can reach Einstein, or Galileo, or Hawking? All that knowledge they have. In some ways, I can't wait to start. Forget the fear, just embrace this. That's what I want to do.
Christian stood up and faced Balthazar. His hands went to the robe's tie at his waist, and he undid it. My dearest acolytes, I regret to inform you that this podcast has been edited to conform to this platform's rules and regulations. Obviously, sexy vampire interludes are not appreciated by these plebeians. This episode has been cut to be acceptable to audiences of all ages. Not to worry, if you are interested in hearing the full episode with all the steamy parts included, you can purchase a monthly membership at wraithrain.com. Not ready to commit to a monthly membership? Then please visit the shop at wraithrain.com, where the full episodes are available for sale in audiobook format. Join us next time for episode 48, Perceptions. The Everdark podcast by X Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing. Last on Everdark, Balthazar and Christian had a romantic time in the bath, but they also shared something more intimate than their bodies, namely some of their fears and secrets. We discover that Balthazar is far more scarred by his master Rome Tithe than he has let on, and being Christian's master has exposed that. Christian realizes that he wants to be a part of Balthazar's world. Everdark, Episode 48, Perceptions.
I feel sick,
Christian said, as he lowered himself onto the couch beside Julian in the living room. A fire crackled happily in the fireplace, and there were thick red candles everywhere, which cast a merry glow over everything, including his best friend's face. Christian had been handsome before becoming a vampire, but now he was practically luminous. But there was a slight sheen on his skin and a faint pastiness to the pallor.
You do look a little green in the gills.
Julian chuckled, but he squashed the laughter. He was slightly nervous sick himself about Henry and Elizabeth Thorne finding out about all this. He had believed in vampires before they found Nightvallen, Damon, Balthazar, and all the rest. Christian's parents were most definitely in the non-believer camp, which would mean it would be even harder for them to accept this.
At the best of times, I would not be looking forward to this dinner. But it is unbelievable all of this has come together now. I can't believe we're having Mom and Dad over for dinner when all this is going on. I mean, we have Heath's body floating downstairs in the catacombs, a vampire civil war on our hands, and a crisis of faith.
Christian's emotional angst was contrasted by how he was dressed. He wore a beautifully tailored soft grey suit with an icy white shirt that was open at the neck. His blonde hair was perfectly coiffed.
When you put it like that, it doesn't sound like a terribly good idea.
Julian chuckled.
But here we are. Oh, and my head is pounding.
Christian rested his elbows on his knees and lowered his head into his hands.
I know you're nervous about telling them that we're vampires, but it's better to get it over with now. Tell the truth rather than a million lies,
Julian said, and patted Christian's back gently.
They love both of us. I think they may even grow to tolerate Damon and Balthazar. No reason to get sick over this.
Christian let out a dry chuckle.
It's not the thought of telling Mom and Dad everything. Though I'm not eager to do that either. It's the damn corpse powder.
Julian frowned.
I thought Arceus took that brandy with him. How did you end up drinking it? I didn't. I did the next best thing and drank Balthazar's blood last night. Little did we know that the effects could last more than 12 hours.
Christian groaned into his hands. Julian's lips twitched into a smile.
Are you saying you're hungover? Don't you dare laugh. I wasn't the one that drank all that contaminated brandy.
Christian cried and clutched his head.
No, you just drank enough of Balthazar's blood to seem like you did.
Julian laughed. Christian started laughing too, but then groaned and held his head more tightly.
Don't. Laughing hurts even more than simply suffering here in silence. Oh, man. I'm sorry.
Julian winced in empathy.
What really annoys me is that Balthazar actually seems fine now, while I'm still suffering from the hangover. I didn't even get to feel drunk that long. It was just when we were in the bath together.
Christian's voice dropped off, but Julian heard him.
You and Balthazar took a bath together?
His best friend looked at him through his fingers.
Perhaps. And you were both naked during this bath, right?
Julian was grinning now. He couldn't help it.
It wasn't as if I had a bathing suit here.
Christian replied stiffly.
Did you drink more than just his blood, Christian?
Julian's smile was so broad that it actually hurt his face. Christian pinked adorably, which was a far better color than the pasty white.
No, but we did other things.
Julian gripped his best friend's upper arm.
That's fantastic. Wait, I'm assuming you wanted to do that, right?
His best friend was definitely gun-shy since David, and he couldn't blame him for that. In fact, Julian found himself more than a little anxious when anyone showed an interest in his best friend. He'd vetted anyone that came close to Christian these days. Or, at least he had, until they had become vampires.
Balthazar let it be my choice completely. I know he doesn't seem like it, but he's actually very sensitive and empathetic. He's a gentleman, too. He would never hurt me.
Christian said with such certainty that Julian's eyebrows rose. But then he shook himself. Christian had never been so emphatic about anyone, and he wasn't going to disagree. He liked Balthazar a lot.
I'm so happy for you, Christian. After how this went down, well, I was happy that you seem to be becoming friends, let alone something more. This will make Henry and Elizabeth thrilled.
Christian lifted his head from his hands and gave Julian a raised eyebrow.
Really? Do you think so? Maybe I'm wrong about that? Or that's what your tone is telling me. You would be right, because I imagine my enthusiasm will make them all the more suspicious of Balthazar.
Christian told him as he rubbed his temples.
Well, you know that no one I've dated, even casually, has met their approval. Balthazar is... well, he's everything that Mom will distrust and Dad will despise. I think they'll see him as an irresponsible playboy.
Julian burst out in laughter.
Well, they'd be right. He is, in a way. But he's also smart, loyal, brave, and a leader. He saved all these people from that Roan tithe. Damon trusts him implicitly. That says something.
Christian said stoutly. Julian grimaced.
Yeah, about that. You really need to talk to Balthazar. Well, is there something about Balthazar that I should distrust?
Christian's eyebrows rose.
No, not at all. But Balthazar and Damon have a past.
Julian admitted, knowing his quick-witted friend would probably put it together.
But how is that possible? Unless...
Christian's forehead furrowed.
Look, Damon trusts him because of who he is and what he's done. He's a good man, or vampire, or whatever.
Julian said. Christian seemed to accept this. He asked, hopefully,
My parents met Damon. Did they like him? Do you think they'll trust his judgment?
Julian's expression grew a little grim.
I think he'll grow on them.
Christian's eyes widened.
That doesn't sound good. They're just protective of us.
Julian scrubbed the back of his neck.
And since he couldn't really give an adequate explanation of who he was and what he did, they were suspicious. They thought he was after my money. Damon? After money?
Christian snorted.
He can just take what he wants. Exactly. But the point is that they knew something was up with him.
Julian grimaced. The more he thought about the night before, the more he saw the negatives.
I'm betting that they never guessed being a vampire king was what he was hiding.
Christian replied wryly. Julian snorted.
Yeah, not in a million years would they figure that out.
Christian rubbed his face and let out another audible groan. But this time it wasn't corpse powder induced, as he said,
Any suggestions as to how I tell them about all this? I mean, do I take them aside? Do I announce it while we're at the table? Balthazar and Michael are making so much effort to ensure this dinner is delicious that maybe I should wait until after we've eaten. Or at least until after my parents have eaten. The less lies we tell, the better. So I vote that you do it before dinner, and hopefully they recover their appetites enough to ask questions through the meal.
Julian suggested.
Imagine going through a whole evening making things up, only to tell them at the end that everything you just said was a lie. Better to just rip the Band-Aid off right now.
Christian gave him a crooked smile as he said,
Surprise, Mom and Dad! We're vampires! Yeah, this is gonna go just great.
Julian thumped his back gently, which still had Christian grimacing.
I'm behind you, Christian. Or beside you. And if you want me to, I'll go ahead of you. I think in the end that your parents will be fascinated more than anything else. They are professors after all. Knowledge to them is like drugs to other people.
Christian nodded, but gently, as his head was clearly still hurting.
I suppose you're right. But there's another question that we haven't considered yet. What's that? Should we offer to make Mom and Dad one of us?
Christian asked very softly.
That way, we don't have to lose the only family we still have.
Julian's mouth opened and shut. He had thought of it, but he couldn't get past the part where they told Christian's parents they were vampires to get to what came after that. He couldn't turn either of them himself. For all he knew, his blood would kill any fledgling he tried to make, just as it had all of Damon's before him. And he was pretty sure that Christian was still too young to make other fledglings of his own, too. So who would do it? Balthazar? Arceus? Or someone else in the house? So much to think of. And what if Christian's parents said no? What if they wanted to stay mortal?
First things first,
Julian suggested, even as his own mind spun the possibilities.
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Christian nodded again. He glanced at the clock on the mantel.
They should be here any moment. I'll send Balthazar over with some water for your head. Maybe some aspirin, too? Does aspirin even work on vampires?
The things they did not know suddenly seemed far larger than the things they did.
Blood is the only thing that makes it better. But there's still too much corpse powder in Balthazar's blood to help me, and I'm not allowed to drink from anyone else. So I think I just have to sit here quietly for a minute and hope the ache goes away.
Christian said with a weak smile. Julian nodded and got up from the couch. He had seen Damon go into the conservatory a few minutes ago, and he decided to join him. He passed through the dining room where Balthazar was measuring the length of the end of the utensils from the edge of the table. Julian had seen this done at super high-end restaurants. In fact, the whole setup looked like something from the chicest of new eateries, with tons of glasses, red, white, champagne and water goblets were set out, not to mention the amount of silverware. There were more forks than Julian could imagine that there would be courses, multiple spoons, different shaped knives, and everything was in silver. He knew it wasn't silver-plated or stainless steel, but solid silver.
Balthazar, you know you could just serve hamburgers and it'd be fine.
Julian pointed out. A ragged-looking Balthazar looked up at him out of intense eyes. Don't be absurd. I would never serve Christian's parents hamburgers. Are you trying to make them hate me? Julian held up his hands to hold back the nervous tension that radiated off of Balthazar in waves.
I'm just saying that they'll enjoy a fancy meal, but you don't have to make it.
It must be perfect. Nothing less will do. Now, you must leave if you're going to distract me from making sure that the table settings are absolutely aligned. Balthazar pointed towards the conservatory. The king is through there. Go, young one, leave my sight. I need time to prepare for this meal.
Hey guys, if you're thinking of subscribing to wraithrain.com just for the uncut podcast chapters, there's a lot more than just the podcast. There's so much more to the membership. Most of what I do are written stories. So since 2010, I've had my own serial subscription site. I have 3 or 4 stories that are currently running, and I update those with 3 or 4 chapters every month a piece. In fact, the sequel to Everdark is in one of the stories I'm updating right now. Once a story is done, it's left on the site as part of the archive. Again, there are over 12 years of completed serials between 150,000 words for a short one and over 500,000 words for a longer one like Everdark. I hope you check it out. Remember, you can get the complete, uncut, unedited, full sexy times Everdark chapters if you are a member of Wraith Rain.
Young one. I'm afraid if I leave you alone, you'll get even more wound up. Look, the Thorns won't really think about you after they hear that Christian and I are vampires.
Julian told him. Really? Shows how little you know. Who made their beloved son into a vampire? Me. That's who. Who will they blame? Me. That's who. So I must make this dinner as perfect as possible so they at least realize how serious I am about taking care of their son, Balthazar told him, and his lower lip actually trembled. Julian felt a wave of sympathy go through him.
You gotta understand that the Thorns are gonna be suspicious of anyone after David. You're older and sophisticated and handsome, all the things that David seemed to be on the outside. Worse, he was Henry's best friend. You just have to accept that no matter how perfect that dinner is, that they're gonna have reservations about you. But it's not personal.
Balthazar's expression went still for a moment, but then he nodded. I figured as much. The little I've heard of David has made me wish I could kill him myself.
Yeah, get in line. If the guy weren't already gone, believe me, we'd all like to take him out.
Julian said firmly. He put a hand on Balthazar's arm. The vampire lord was dressed beautifully as always, but he could see that Balthazar had taken even more care to make his appearance spectacular. He was wearing dark grey trousers, a sea-green shirt, and a form-fitting vest.
You saved Christian. I'll tell them that. I'll explain all of it.
Like I told Christian before, the only reason that he was in that dire position in the first place was because Heath and Celine disobeyed my orders, Balthazar answered bleakly. There were traitors in my house, and I did not know. Considering who I am. He broke off and looked away. Julian squeezed his arm.
About that, you really need to tell Christian and Arceus.
You are new to all of this, Julian. The Vampire King being real and being like he is seems normal to you. But to everyone else, he was a myth. And the other immortals, he merely shook his head at that, unable to finish the sentence.
You saved them from Roan Tithe. They don't need to look to myths to understand you. They know who you are, Balthazar.
Julian assured him. Balthazar fussed with one of the knives. Arceus has been trying to corner me all day about it. I haven't met with him because he let out a huge breath. I'm afraid of what he'll ask and what he'll say. If he's not supportive, then no one will be.
Arceus loves you. He'll accept you, and you can't hide forever.
Julian squeezed his arm once more.
Trust him.
Balthazar said nothing, just looking glumly down at the perfect place settings. Julian let out a breath, but he knew he couldn't do more here. He headed towards the conservatory. He felt badly for Balthazar. He'd made it sound like acceptance was easy, but he knew it wasn't. The thorns were probably going to strain his belief in acceptance greatly, and the vampire religion had made the 10 immortals into monsters. Balthazar would have to remind even those nearest and dearest to him that he wasn't the myth they had all been taught about. Not just once, but many times. The damp heat of the conservatory wrapped around him as he stepped into the glass-enclosed space. The scent of flowers filled his nostrils. Even as the world outside turned to fall, in here it was always high summer. Roses, lilies, and lilacs, among other flowers he didn't know the names of, bloomed in profusion, filling every spare space except for the narrow pathway that wound around them. He felt like he had stepped into the Garden of Eden. He found Damon at the very far end of the room. Arceus and Damon were in deep conversation.
Balthazar will not speak to me, King Damon. I need you to tell me the truth of who he is and explain what it means.
Arceus said in his deep, baritone voice. Damon's eyebrows rose up into his hairline with gentle amusement. He's avoiding you, is he? I'm surprised that you're allowing him to do such a thing.
He's being quite flighty,
Arceus said, a frown on his full lips. Or are you allowing him to avoid you, Arceus? Damon challenged. Arceus opened and closed his mouth.
I want him to desire to tell me.
He is afraid. You stood with him when he was exiled. I imagine he feels he is throwing the dice once too often to count on your support again. Damon answered simply. Arceus shook his shaggy head.
I gave up everything to go with him into exile. Why would he think that this of all things would turn me away?
You cannot even say what this is, Arceus. You know him better than anyone, yet you are afraid. Damon put his hands on Arceus's shoulders. He has not changed. He is the same vampire you have always known. Only your perception of him has become different. Perceptions change. Yours will change again. Arceus looked deeply unhappy.
I told myself that I was beyond the myths that the Order told us. But the stories of the Immortals, the stories about Eiros, to know that Balthazar is... I'm having trouble accepting it.
Think on this, my friend. Even if you believe all the terrible things that the Order has told you about Eiros, Balthazar is different, is he not? You are his most trusted confidant, Damon said simply. You can influence him to make sure he does not become the creature that the Order told you that he was. Arceus passed a hand over his forehead and then down to his thick beard.
You're right, of course. I'm ashamed of how I feel. My fear is irrational. I know this. I can only imagine how Balthazar must feel. The shock and anguish of it. He must feel so alone.
In a way, he struck out against Roan tithe, because he saw the wrongness of using the Eiros gift on those he cared for. He's learned different lessons from who he was before Arceus. Reinforce those good lessons. Be his friend. Be his advisor. Be unafraid, Damon urged. Arceus let out a long breath and nodded.
Again, King Damon, I am honoured to hear your wisdom. In some ways, I thought of Balthazar as my own fledgling. I could have asked for no one better. Now to think he is the master, more than a master.
Damon smiled. You are his friend and a father figure. You are an advisor and the person who reminds him of who he is. He will need you more than ever in the days and months and years to come. So many will seek out his friendship because they want something from him. All you want from him is for him to be the best man he can be. Your protective instincts are more necessary than ever before. Arceus nodded.
I will not let him avoid me anymore. I will let him know that I am on his side. Thank you, my king.
The vampire confessor bowed low, and then he made his way out of the conservatory. When he walked past Julian, he gave Julian an affectionate smile and squeezed his shoulder as he passed by. Damon did not turn to look at him, but simply extended a hand to his side, knowing that Julian was there and wanting him near. Julian went up to him and laced his fingers through Damon's. He leaned against the solid, muscular body.
I'm so glad you said what you did. Balthazar needs Arceus,
Julian said.
If even I can see that, then it's definitely true.
On the contrary, you are quite perceptive, Damon said as they both stared out through the fog-shrouded glass at the night beyond. Are you nervous? About the thorns?
About Elizabeth and Henry finding out that Christian and I are vampires? Yeah, I'm practically peeing myself.
Julian let out a mirthless laugh.
I have no freaking clue how Christian and I are going to tell them this in any way that they'll understand.
You will say it as simply as you can, and then answer their questions. There will likely be many questions. Julian snorted, but then his amusement left him as quickly as it came.
Damon, I don't know if you can imagine this, but they may not take it well.
How so? You have been made immortal. More than that, you've been made stronger and faster and given gifts, Damon said quietly.
You would see it as a net positive. And it is, but the thorns, they may not agree. Was there ever a time when you didn't have to drink the blood of other sentient beings to survive?
Julian asked simply. Damon made a humming sound and appeared to be thinking about it. Not that I can remember. But even humans need the meat of other animals to survive.
The vegetarians and vegans would disagree with you, but putting that aside.
Julian bit his lower lip. How to explain this in any way that Damon could understand? It wasn't that the Vampire King was without imagination, but this was so far out of his understanding that he might not be able to comprehend it.
There's a taboo against cannibalism. It's one of the big ones. Thou shalt not have sex with one's immediate family. Thou shalt not eat other human beings. I think that not eating other people is probably the biggest taboo that humans have. Those who've gone against that are considered tainted at best, and at worst, they're considered monsters.
And since you now require the blood of human beings to survive, you fear that the Thorns will consider you and Christian monsters? Damon asked. Julian nodded.
Let's say they get past the cannibalism thing somehow. We're different. I was looking at Christian earlier tonight, and though he's suffering a hangover from the corpse powder...
Damon's lips quirked into a smile. He drank so much blood from Balthazar last night that he's suffering from the corpse powder's effects.
There was a bath involved.
Julian grinned.
But anyways, Christian's always been handsome, but I could see tonight that he's more than that now. I could see that he wasn't human anymore. It was strange. I can't even tell you how exactly. I can't even tell you exactly what I noticed or what was different, but I could tell he wasn't the same. His parents will feel that in their bones. Their son is gone. The person who's still here, will they recognize him as their own or see him as some facsimile of the person they loved?
Damon turned to him and cupped his face. They did not react badly to you last night, and I can tell that they think of you as their son as well. Julian gave him a mirthless smile.
Christian is their true son. As much as they love me, and they do, and I would not disagree with you, Elizabeth gave birth to him. Henry changed his diapers and bandaged his scabbed knees. The moment they look at him, I think they'll know. They won't think vampire because they don't believe in vampires, but they will know that the person they're looking at isn't the same as he was before.
Damon's thumbs ran along his cheekbones. You're afraid that they'll think he's become something bad? Julian nodded.
Once they realize that vampires are real, they'll remember that my parents were killed by one of them. And now, the vampires have taken their son. It's not going to go well. I really wish that I could get them from knowing to acceptance faster.
Damon drew Julian into a hug. His hands ran up and down Julian's spine. Life is about changing our perception of things. You cannot spare anyone understanding. You can only be there as a support. But in the end, they must make the choice to accept or reject what changes life has wrought. Julian was not surprised by this, but it made his heart hurt. Then the doorbell to Ravenscroft Manor sounded. The Thorns had arrived. Join us next time for episode 49, Meet the Parents.
You might be wondering, are all my stories on wraithrain.com like Everdark? I do write plenty of vampires. I love vampires. But I also write about werewolves, space explorers, magic users, and elves too. All my stories are gay, romantic, action, and adventure, and they are all fantasy, urban fantasy, or science, more like fantasy rather than fiction. If you decide to join us at wraithrain.com as a member, for example, for a month to support the podcast, definitely look around the site too. Once you join, you'll get a short series of emails to guide you to stories that you might love. And of course, the members' private podcast page, where the stories don't fade to black, where the close comes off, is completely available to you. And the members' podcast is ahead of the public podcast. We really do hope you join us at wraithrain.com and become a member, even for a month. We'd love to see you there. Look in the description down below for links to take you where you need to go to sign up. Thanks again. Bye.
The Everdark podcast by X Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraithrain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraithrain Publishing. Last on Everdark, everyone prepared for the Thorns to arrive for dinner. Balthazar's true identity as the immortal Iros is making what is already a taut affair into something even harder. Now the Thorns have arrived, and answers to questions that they didn't even know they had to ask are about to be spoken. Everdark, Episode 49, Meet the Parents. Christian went to the front door to answer the ring of the bell. He wondered what his parents thought of the house. Did they think it was ostentatious or beautiful? And what would they think of its owner? They must have guessed that Balthazar was rich, but maybe they thought he got his money illicitly. Christian didn't know where House Ravenscroft's money came from, now that he thought about it. And considering mind control was their power, it would be awfully easy to get people to empty their bank accounts, or have rich people write them into their wills, or any number of illegal and immoral activities. But while Balthazar clearly enjoyed the finer things in life, and they seemed to enjoy him right back, Christian didn't believe he'd robbed old ladies or put people into the poorhouse to get them. Balthazar was more the type that would go after drug dealers or crime lords, and he would have done it not so much for himself, but for his house. The members of House Ravenscroft came first. He was proud of Balthazar for his caring for his people, and he thought his parents would admire it too, once they got past the vampire thing. Christian nervously ran his hands down his front. He felt dozens of eyes on him. The other vampires in House Ravenscroft tried to appear as if they were all randomly clumped in the foyer at that moment for reasons other than to see his parents. On some level, he was amused and touched by their interest. His parents did not get this much attention from people ever. They were wonderful, smart, kind, funny people. But they had no idea how fascinated the vampires in that room were. Balthazar had explained why when they had woken up in one another's arms that evening. Most everyone here was turned too long ago to have living parents. Some of their families have even died out. So to have actual relatives still alive, a mother and a father no less, is rather exciting, Balthazar said, while his fingers carded through Christian's hair in a way that made his headache ease a little.
You find it exciting too, don't you?
Christian smiled up at Balthazar. Yes, very much so. To have to meet a beau's parents is something I have never had the experience of doing in my first life, or my second, Balthazar admitted, and he grinned happily.
You're not like anyone I've ever dated before.
Christian paused. Were they dating? That sounded so juvenile. And maybe sex was simply part of the master-fledgling relationship. But no, Balthazar had said beau.
They're very protective since David, so if they say anything that might be considered rude, just please don't judge them too harshly for it.
I won't. I promise. I know I'll love your parents, even if it takes them a little while for them to warm up to me. And a little while for vampires is decades.
You're already hedging your bets on this.
Christian let out a nervous laugh. I don't want you to worry about things, that's all. At least not about me and my feelings in any event. In order to comply with YouTube community guidelines, the next section of the podcast has been abridged.
You're not at all how I made you out to be in my mind.
Christian admitted. I was stalking you, Balthazar confessed. Christian's head popped up.
Seriously?
That unnerves you, I'm sure.
Well, you are a vampire who can control minds. Please tell me that you never—
I never controlled yours. Balthazar cupped Christian's cheek. I thought about it. Christian cocked up an eyebrow at him.
If you'd said otherwise, I might not have believed you.
Balthazar stroked his cheek. You know me too well already.
No, I think I'm discovering you all the time. The real you. To have the power that you do, and yet I haven't seen you truly abuse it, is a wonder in a way.
Christian rubbed his cheek against Balthazar's muscled chest. Well, to be fair, you haven't been around me long enough to see me abuse it. And I've been careful, Balthazar answered. I've done things, Christian. Every vampire has. We are predators, and we must keep ourselves invisible to our human prey. I've tried to be more thoughtful about it since your turning, but I cannot promise that I won't do something you disapprove of.
I know,
Christian said.
But you are trying. That you're doing it for me is— well, I should be worried that you aren't doing it for you.
But you're not.
No?
His fingers traced an infinity symbol on Balthazar's chest.
Because it makes me feel—
treasured. Christian's mouth flattened.
I'm not a thing, Balthazar.
No, you are not. How about considered? He smiled.
I like that. Considered.
You are very much considered. Balthazar kissed his forehead.
I don't know if my parents will accept this. Not us, I mean being a vampire.
Did you reveal your taste for men to them with David? Christian nodded.
I think they suspected. I think they hoped that Julian and I would become a couple.
In order to comply with YouTube community guidelines, the next section of the podcast has been abridged.
I guess I feared that I might become just like all the others in House Ravenscroft, an orphan.
Christian had answered softly, and he curled tighter against Balthazar's naked body.
If my parents don't accept what I am now, I'm not sure how I'll feel. Becoming a vampire was nothing I ever intended, but now that I am one, I feel like this is what I was always meant to become.
I cannot say you are wrong about your parents' reactions to all of this, as I do not know them, and in my time, we did not even bother to try to tell our parents about what we were. To be a vampire was to be an agent of the devil. Your parents are beyond such superstitions, being professors, or so I hope, but there are atavistic fears that some cannot overcome, Balthazar replied, and Christian knew he was being as logical as possible for Christian's sake instead of his usual romantic self. But I believe that they love you and will come to terms with it. I will do whatever I can to make them see you are still the son they adore, and Christian sat up alarmed.
Not if it involves you using your mind control powers on them?
Balthazar cupped his cheek. No, pet. I am well aware of how you feel about mind powers. I just meant that I will be charming.
Oh no, that might be worse. Maybe mind control will be necessary.
Christian fell back against his chest. What? Balthazar squawked, which had Christian grinning against that silky skin. There were acres of the stuff for him to explore in and out of the bath. I am quite charming. Everyone says so. I cannot believe you—
I'm teasing you,
Christian admitted, and watched as Balthazar settled slightly. I don't know if I believe you, Balthazar said with a small frown on his lips. Christian reached up and used his fingers to turn that frown into a smile.
Just be yourself. That's best with my parents. They like genuine people.
I am charming naturally. It's my default mode, Balthazar said, his voice a little blurred from Christian's fingers on the corners of his lips.
Okay, then everything will be great,
Christian said.
Or at least it won't be because of you that they turn away.
Christian took in a deep breath. On the one hand, he couldn't imagine his family genuinely rejecting him, but on the other, he feared they would do nothing but.
Time to find out.
He put his hand on the doorknob, just about to open it, when Balthazar appeared by his side. This is our house, Christian. We welcome them together, Balthazar told him with a smile. Christian immediately felt relief sweep through him. Balthazar was there. He was another person that Christian could rely upon, as loyal as Julian and just as sensitive. For even though Balthazar had been so logical about meeting his parents before, now he looked a little haggard. He fears rejection. A voice, soft, male, familiar, whispered in his ear. Christian jerked and spun around to look behind him, but there was no one there. Christian? Balthazar asked, alarm showing on his face.
It can't be David. Balthazar's protecting me. It's just my nervousness.
The doorbell rang again. Christian quickly grasped the handles. Balthazar put one hand over his. Be calm, Balthazar said, and a wave of calm did come over him. He swallowed and nodded his thanks. Balthazar then spoke to the room. I know you are excited to meet Christian's family, but you must be invisible until I introduce you. Do not draw their attention. Understood? Everyone nodded, almost as one. Now, Balthazar said to Christian, let's do this.
You know, writing is hard and lonely. I'm more a storyteller who loves nothing better than interacting with the audience. This is why I write serially on wraithrain.com. And members have the ability to comment on the chapters as soon as I post them. So no waiting for an entire book to be done before I know what you guys think. In case you didn't know, I run my own serial website for gay action and adventure romance since 2010. And the reason I've done this as my focus, rather than writing traditional books, is because I get to talk to you guys. I have always loved interactive storytelling like Dungeons & Dragons, and this has been my way of interacting with my readers. Now, there are live streams. I've been reading Empire of Stars on stream at least once a month. And since Everdark started, I've been doing live streams with a cast member when they're available. On YouTube, I've made separate playlists for Empire of Stars chapters and Everdark cast streams, and I'll put the links to those in the notes.
Christian practically yanked the doors open. His mother and father stood there in the fall night air. His mother wore a beautiful gold and green dress with a gold wrap around her shoulders. His father wore one of his dark heather suits. Both of them smiled immediately upon seeing him.
Christian!
His mother cried as she stepped in, hugged him, and kissed him on the cheek.
Hey, Mom.
He saw his father wave to him over his mother's shoulder, and then he was enveloped fully by her arms and her flowery perfume and, for a moment, but it seemed much longer. He could hear the whoosh of her blood through her veins and the steady beat of her heart. His fangs extended unexpectedly. He had not fed too deeply from Balthazar because of the corpse powder, but he had not thought it would be a problem. Now he feared he had underestimated the need for it. He pulled back, trying to hide the fact that he was retreating and needing to put distance between them. He held her firmly away from him, but tried to smile winsomely. His mother touched his cheek.
You look so handsome tonight, honey. I mean, you always do, but there's something.
A strange look crossed her face, as if disturbed by something, but then the smile was back in place. Had she noticed his eyes? Did she think he was wearing contacts? And when she noticed that everyone but Julian and Damon had the same eyes, what would her conclusions be then? She finally said,
You have a glow about you.
I would like to take credit for that glow, but I think your son is naturally luminous, Balthazar said with a broad smile.
Perhaps it's the good food and drink,
Christian said. That could be it, Balthazar nodded.
Mom, Dad, please let me introduce Lord Balthazar Ravenscroft.
He knew his parents had been checking Balthazar out from the moment they had arrived, so he was both dreading and curious to see their reactions to him. His mother's gaze sharpened for a moment as she took in Balthazar's impeccably tailored form and his thick head of hair, not to mention the piercing silver eyes.
Pleasure to meet you. Call me Elizabeth.
His mother extended a hand. Balthazar took it and kissed it. Unlike an ordinary person, he looked graceful and natural doing this, a true old-time noble. His mother pinked a little and took her hand back slowly, as if she couldn't believe that someone had done something she'd only seen in movies and hadn't looked stupid doing it. Mr. Thorne, it is an honor to meet you as well. He extended a hand for a firm shake, which she received.
Lord Ravenscroft.
His father asked with a trace of interest and likely suspicion. Yes, but please, both of you call me Balthazar, and welcome to my home. Balthazar gestured for the two of them to enter. The moment that the doors had closed behind them, two servants appeared to take their jackets. Two more appeared with silver trays on top of which were 4 glasses of champagne, one for each of them. His mother took one of the delicate flutes off the tray and took a sip. Her eyes widened in pleasure.
This is delicious,
She exclaimed. I am so glad you like it. It is Louis Roederer Cristal, Balthazar answered graciously as he made sure that Christian and Christian's father had a glass before he took one himself. Christian did wonder if Balthazar would really want any more alcohol after the brandy with corpse powder last night. His stomach was a little squeamish as he took a sip, but the champagne was as delicious as his mother had said, and he took another much larger sip. Sophia came skipping up at that moment in a blue-silver baby doll dress. Her blonde hair was in pigtails with matching ribbons, and she wore white saddle shoes with white tights. She was such a vision of anime cuteness that she almost did not look real. Despite her usual forwardness, she drifted over to Christian almost shyly and said,
Aren't you going to introduce me to your mom and dad?
Her voice was so wistful that it almost hurt Christian to hear. She especially looked longingly at his mother, clearly aching to feel a mother's touch. How long had it been since her mother was alive? His mother caught sight of her and she let out a small sound.
Oh my goodness, aren't you lovely?
She exclaimed and reached for Sophia as if she couldn't resist her.
Sophia, this is my mother, Elizabeth.
Christian said, and made a little scooting motion with his hands, letting Sophia know it was okay to approach. Sophia curtsied.
It's a pleasure to meet you. You are exactly what I would expect Christian's mommy to be like.
His mother surprised him by getting a little teary-eyed. It was almost as if she sensed how much Sophia valued mummies.
Why, thank you. I am Christian's mommy.
She looked over at him with a wide smile.
I haven't been called that in a long time. I think since you were about 5.
I never called you Mommy, did I?
Christian asked, blushing even as he saw Balthazar smirking at this slightly.
You absolutely did.
His mother laughed.
And you would say it so solemnly, too.
His father chuckled as he sipped his champagne.
Did I call you Daddy? Please tell me I didn't.
Christian asked.
You called me father, and you were very precise about it. I would have loved to be daddy every once in a while, but to my serious little boy, I was always father. I was thrilled when you called me dad.
His father laughed. It didn't take much before Sophia was the center of attention once more, being petted and cooed over by his mother. He'd often thought that his mother wished she'd had a second child, a daughter, and Sophia seemed to bring out that desire in full force. His mother exclaimed over her hair and dress. Sophia modeled it for her, spinning in a circle that had the puffy bottom flaring out.
Henry, isn't she precious? Oh, she's so adorable.
His mother said, answering her own question.
She most certainly is.
His father agreed, then turned to Balthazar.
Is she your daughter?
What? Balthazar looked stunned for a moment. No, she's...
We're cousins.
Sophia claimed, and immediately went to Balthazar's side, winding her arm through his.
Cousin Balthazar is so good to me. He's gonna let me have 2 kitties.
3, actually. I want one as well.
Christian put in. Balthazar blanched. Why, no, I haven't agreed.
I bet you would look even more adorable with 2 cats.
His mother seemed to be drunk on Sophia's cuteness. Balthazar went whiter still. This isn't... We haven't discussed. Really, that's quite... Christian put a hand on his shoulder, and the other on Sophia's.
Balthazar is very good to Sophia. He finds her as adorable as you do, Mom.
Balthazar quickly looked stricken, but then he sighed as if a man defeated. Yes, well, we will see about the felines. Christian kissed his cheek, which perked him up, but Balthazar seemed even more relieved when Julian and Damon came into the room with huge smiles. Julian's arms were already outstretched to embrace his parents. They moved to Julian with quick steps, and Christian's mother was hugging him. She kissed both of his cheeks.
You look so handsome too.
She laughed.
I don't know what it is.
She looked between Christian and Julian, as if to find that certain something that was drawing her attention.
I'm just glad to see both my boys looking so well.
They're very happy. They're exactly where they were meant to be,
Sophia said gently, but her eyes looked odd and not like a little girl's. But his mother didn't seem to notice. Christian, though, gave her a sharp glance. She smiled up at him, but there was a little trace of sadness in it. He swallowed. Hopefully, he was imagining that. The meeting had been going well so far. He didn't want things to take a turn for the worse. Julian reached over and hugged Christian's dad. Though his father was more of a handshake type of a person, he always embraced Julian readily, as if he remembered each time that Julian would never get another hug from his father again. And Julian's father had been the type to always have an easy arm around his son's shoulders.
It's so good to see you here, Henry,
Julian said, after squeezing the older man tightly.
And you, Julian.
As they pulled apart, the staff was back, serving Julian and Damon champagne. The other vampires, though they were all clearly there, did not draw his mother or father's gazes. They seemed to slide right past them. It was fascinating to watch, and a little unnerving at the same time. Balthazar put a hand on his lower back and leaned in towards him. Things seemed to be going well.
I think you won my mother over with your promise about the cats.
Christian answered with a small smile. Balthazar looked like he'd sucked on a lemon. That had Christian snickering.
Damon, how nice to see you again.
Christian's mother smiled at the vampire king with a mixture of interest and trepidation. She apparently still thought that something was wrong with him.
She'll find out what that is in a little while. How am I going to tell them we're vampires?
Remember when she found out about us? The male voice asked mournfully. She made you so ashamed, as if our relationship was unclean. Christian's mouth went dry.
I'm not hearing this. I am not hearing this.
There was silence in his head. He let out a soft breath. It had only been his imagination. Mrs. Thorne, Mr. Thorne, it is a pleasure to be in your presence once more, Damon said with a formal bow. Just like Balthazar had seemed natural with the hand-kissing, Damon's bow was perfect for him. Is everything okay, Christian? Balthazar's brow furrowed. Christian thought about telling him about David's voice. It was definitely David's, but decided against it.
I'm fine.
Balthazar didn't look satisfied, but more staff came flooding in with the most delicious-looking canapes and yet more champagne on silver platters. His mother gave out a delighted yet sort of strangled laugh.
Balthazar, how many people are you expecting for dinner? I can't imagine that just the 7 of us could eat or drink so much.
His mother asked, delighted by the spectacle.
The others really are invisible to them.
Balthazar blinked, and it appeared he had forgotten, too, about the rest of the house. With a wave of his hand, he said, "It won't be just us. It's quite the party. Let me introduce you to the other members of my household." It was only then that his parents saw that they were surrounded by tons of very beautiful people. The vampires all smiled and started to approach in their graceful yet predatory way. His mother and father's shocked smiles died, though, as they regarded them, and Christian then realized why. While it might have been hard to notice his, Sophia, and Balthazar's matching silver eyes, it was impossible to miss a whole room full of people with them. His mother's smile was utterly gone, as her gaze flickered between all of them and finally back to him. He tightened his grip on the champagne glass and thought he heard it creak in protest. He immediately let up for fear of shattering it. But his mother's next words had him tensing again, even though they weren't aimed at him.
Lord Ravenscroft, what is the meaning of this? Why does my son have silver eyes just like yours?
Not just his, dear.
Henry breathed.
All of them do.
Join us next time for episode 50, Vampire Boys.
Do you want to join the next live stream? The easiest way is to subscribe to the Wraith Rain YouTube channel. You'll see the community posts, shorts, announcement videos, and get notifications when we go live. You can also join my good old-fashioned mailing list, and you'll get an email reminder within 24 hours with links to our YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook channels. Hope to see you on the next one.
The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thelis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adriel Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing. Last on Everdark, the Thorns arrived for dinner, and things were going so swimmingly until Elizabeth and Henry saw that almost everyone had silver eyes. Everdark, Episode 50, Vampire Boys. Balthazar was rarely speechless, but this was one of those rare occasions, and it was all his fault because he could have easily made it so the Thorns had not noticed the matching silver eyes. He could, in fact, do that now. But he had promised Christian he wouldn't use his mind control powers on Elizabeth and Henry. His eyes flickered to his fledgling. "What do you want me to do, Christian?" Balthazar sent telepathically. "Reading your mind at this moment would clear things up, but you would not forgive me for it. A violation of your privacy when things are so very emotional."
Mom, Dad, Balthazar isn't responsible for this.
Christian began. "But I am. Your eyes are silver because of me," Balthazar sent. But Christian was not looking at him at that moment. He was staring at Julian rather helplessly. Balthazar wanted to be the one to swoop in and save the day, but he knew that wasn't his role here. He was there to pick up the pieces if things shattered. Julian stepped forward.
Elizabeth, Damon and I don't have silver eyes. See?
That was a mistake, though, because she then focused on Julian's changed eyes, a nearly glowing purple. Balthazar wondered if Julian realized how otherworldly he looked. She reached a hand up to touch Julian's face. Her fingers slid along that cut glass cheekbone right beneath the brilliant, sparkling, almost indigo eyes.
But you too are different. No, I don't understand this. Are you both wearing contacts? But why would you do that? yet they don't look fake.
She let out an uncomfortable laugh, but there was this look of awe, or perhaps fear.
Elizabeth, Henry, let's have some more champagne and something to eat. Maybe even sit down.
Julian said, putting an arm around her shoulders.
We can talk about everything.
There's an everything to discuss?
Her eyebrows went up. Oh, my dear, you will not believe what that everything is,
Yes, honey, let's do that.
Henry said, his discomfort showing. He saw the silver eyes too, but it didn't look like he saw it as nefarious as did his wife. Yet he likely thought there was some rational explanation for all of this, while Elizabeth sensed a deeper truth.
But Henry, look at them!
She gestured to the rest of House Ravenscroft in their elegant finery.
Who are they? What have our boys gotten into?
Henry, though, gently clasped her arm and brought it down. He looked embarrassed.
I don't think this is the way to address things. These people are friends, clearly, of Lord Ravenscroft, and
I know you think I'm making a scene, but something is going on here.
She said, though her voice lowered. Balthazar was hugely impressed. She had sensed something was off, and she didn't let it go like so many people did.
Mom.
Christian finally spoke. He licked his lips, and in those silver eyes Balthazar saw fear and hope and uncertainty.
We'll explain. Let's enjoy ourselves for a moment, okay?
Enjoy.
It's not bad. It's not at all like whatever you're thinking. Believe me. You couldn't imagine what it is.
Christian told her. She stared at him for long, aching moments. Finally, she nodded reluctantly and allowed Christian and Julian to take her and Henry over to the seating area around the fire. The other members of House Ravenscroft stood silent, worried, and unsure what to do. This was a mistake. I should have made it a private dinner, Balthazar thought. But everyone wanted to meet them. Since Christian is my fledgling, it makes them more interesting and essential to the house. But I should have known to start this slow.
Should we go?
Ridley asked him. She'd dressed up in her favorite outfit of black pants and a sparkly black shirt that hung off of one shoulder. She'd even put makeup on and tried to get past her fear and grief for Heath and her mistress. It looked like she too had been excited to meet Christian's parents. Balthazar put his hands on her shoulders. This is going to be a difficult night. For now, just keep people nearby, but not hawking over them. Once they realize what we are.
They'll be afraid. All those predators around them.
Riley cast her gaze around the room as if seeing it through the Thorn's eyes.
I'm sorry, Balthazar. We all should have realized how it would be. But we hoped...
I know. So did I. And it was my responsibility.
No, you can't do everything.
She interrupted, gently but firmly.
We all are responsible, and we need to think ahead.
He wondered if she meant just about this, or if she was thinking about what Heath and Celine had done. I know you have a lot on your minds, but perhaps you could pass the word on to the others. Just to hold off, Balthazar suggested. She nodded.
Of course.
He let her go, and intended to go himself to Christian's side, but Arceus stepped over to him. Balthazar's stomach flipped. Ever since last night, he had been dreading being alone with the vampire confessor. Arceus saw something was very different about him, but had he any idea about the truth? It wasn't just Christian who was coming out, so to speak, that night. The vampire confessor stroked his beard and followed the thorns with his eyes as Julian and Christian settled the parents down. Damon moved with sinuous ease to lean against the fireplace's mantel. His red eyes showed interest, but no alarm. Balthazar knew that the vampire king would sweep in at a moment's notice to save Julian if necessary. But can he save him from heartbreak? There is no physical threat here, just an emotional one. The staff topped off their glasses and put little delicacies, like small toasts with cream cheese, shrimp with mango chutney, and bites of fresh cantaloupe wrapped in prosciutto before them. The parents and their children, for Julian was as much their son as Christian was in Balthazar's estimation, started to talk in starts and stops about the room, the food, the drink. All were complimentary, but it was the most awkward of small talk. Balthazar knew he needed to join them, but found himself curiously reluctant to break this moment of normalcy before everything shattered. If my parents could have gotten past the idea that I was one of the devil's minions, what would they have thought of me being a vampire? Then again, my master was Roan Tithe. He wouldn't have shared me with them.
We should have strategized this a little better, I think.
Arceus murmured with a half-smile.
Though I'm not sure we could have anticipated all of it.
We had no time. Too much else is going on. Some would find it crazy to do this now, but better like this than one of the Order's goons attacking them, Balthazar offered.
Speaking of those, I interviewed the 2 Order members that Julian took out last night.
Arceus said. I'm interested in what you found out, but maybe not now. Balthazar let out an uncertain laugh. I don't think I can take any more bad news.
It's not bad. Well, it is, but it will make you feel better about all this. They were definitely sent to kill the Thorns.
Arceus said as he crossed his arms behind his back at the wrists. Balthazar's head snapped around to him. He had suspected this, but somehow to hear it was different. Is Caemon insane? Arceus shifted his shoulders, and a look of shame crossed his handsome features. Though he had been kicked out of the Order for choosing exile with Balthazar, he still seemed to feel responsible for what it did.
The plan was to try and cut off anyone who had been to Nightvallen, or could have been told about it.
Arceus continued. It's too late for that. Damon is here, and not going away. His voice rose at the end, causing others to look over at him. He gave them a wave and lowered his voice. Too many people know about him.
But if he and all of us were eliminated, then maybe it wouldn't be too late. Even those who had seen him would stay silent out of fear.
Arceus said.
But eliminating us is not so easy. The fact that Julian, who has just been turned, was able to fight them off using multiple powers has unnerved them.
So they believe in Damon?
Not yet, but I would like your authority to ask him to face them.
Arceus said. My authority? Damon isn't under my authority. Balthazar let out another uncertain laugh. You have more than my permission to ask him, but he will do what he will do. Arceus was quiet for long moments, and Balthazar almost knew what was on the tip of his tongue, questions he was terrified to answer. Balthazar's hands were sweating. He never sweated, but he was now. He'd been bold as brass going up against the council after killing Roan, but Arceus's reaction to his deeds told him that he had been in the right. The other man was his moral compass in some ways. But now, if Arceus disapproved of who he really was, he wasn't sure what he would do. Arceus turned to him.
I should have been with you tonight, helping you with this.
Balthazar let out a breath and shrugged, though the movement was so tense that it was more of a jerk of his shoulders. I wasn't exactly allowing you to.
Because you were afraid to tell me something significant.
Arceus said. His eyes were kind. He looked at Balthazar like a father would a son. That's how I've seen him all these years. My father was more interested in his port than me, and I pretended not to care. But Arceus has been there since the first moments of my second life. Do you know what do you know who Balthazar swallowed. Damn it. You know, don't you? You know who I was. And this was not the time for him to break down. He should lie. He should push Arceus back. But the vampire confessor was using this moment when lying would be impossible to get him to tell the truth of it. Arceus's hand gripped his shoulder.
I know who you are. That is what is important. I'm your friend. I am a grateful member of your house, and I am a proud bearer of your bloodline. Iros.
If you're curious about how the ongoing stories work on my serial site, wraithrain.com, here it is. I am always writing 3 or 4 stories at the same time. I write between 12 and 15 chapters worth of updates to these stories every single month. That's at least 40,000 words, and oftentimes it's more. The moment a chapter is done, I post it for my members to read and react to with comments. How do member comments affect my writing? A ton. I look over the comments for the latest chapter before starting to write the next one. It gives me a good jumping off point. They tell me what's working, what's confusing, and what members want more of.
Balthazar's eyelids shut for a long moment. That name, coming out of Arceus's mouth, made it completely real. More real than Damon calling him that. Because Arceus was only a part of his second life, not the past. When he opened them, he focused on his old friend. He turned and gripped the vampire confessor's shoulder. His smile was still a little tremulous, and his heart was beating too quickly. He was relieved. So relieved, but he couldn't quite believe it. I should have known, of all people, that I could trust you not to turn away from me, Balthazar said. After all, I've done just this life.
You've done good things, Balthazar, and I think that you'll do great things in the future. It was not a coincidence that brought our king to your door,
Arceus said. Balthazar's gaze was drawn to Damon. The king gave him a subtle nod and smile, which Balthazar returned. Everything is going to change, isn't it? Balthazar asked.
I think so. And I believe for the better, but there will be difficulties.
He tipped his head towards the group around the fireplace.
Yet, in the end, there will be acceptance, and you will be at the forefront of that.
Speaking of being at the forefront, I should get over there now. I have no idea how this is going to go, but I intend to be with Christian every step of the way, especially if this part does not end well, Balthazar said.
Indeed, your fledgling is incredibly strong and emotionally resilient, but this is too much for any one to bear alone,
Arceus said. He patted Balthazar's arm once more.
I will help Ridley keep the others in line. I think they are just as excited to have human parents in this house as they are to have their king.
It's different, having such young fledglings here, isn't it? It's been too long since we've added to House Ravenscroft, Balthazar realized.
It has,
Arceus agreed. But there had been valid reasons for that. Balthazar himself had not felt ready for a fledgling, and the exile had made him leery of bringing any more of their kind into the world without access to the Everdark. But now he saw that it had been a mistake. They needed to grow, and there was no shame in being an exile, not if being on the inside meant allowing a creature like Roan Tithe to live. And they would have access to the Everdark now. They would be allowed into its greatest city, Nightvarlen, the city of the king. All in all, Balthazar thought that Sophia would not be the only vampire to ask to join his house in the coming days. It might be time for you to take a fledgling, now that you aren't in the Order any longer, old friend, Balthazar half teased.
Perhaps.
Arceus gave a rather impish grin.
But I find I have my hands full with a certain vampire lord.
You've always been there, Arceus. Without you, Balthazar swallowed. Without you, things would not be as they are today.
I have faith in you, Balthazar. Go to Christian. Face this head on. No matter what happens, you are the master of this house and that young man. You will do what is right,
Arceus said. Arceus bowed to him, which had Balthazar feeling both strange and proud before he went off after Ridley. Balthazar, feeling relieved and more himself than he had in a long time, smoothed his hands down the front of his suit and went over to the sofa and chairs where everyone was seated making stilted conversation, except for Damon, who was looking on silently. Balthazar plucked another glass of champagne off the silver tray and smiled at everyone. The conversation abruptly ceased as he did so. This gave him an opening to speak up and ease this burden on Christian. We're very excited to have you here, Henry and Elizabeth. Everyone is, in fact, a little nervous. We, me especially, want to make a good first impression, but I'm afraid we haven't, Balthazar said. As head of House Ravenscroft, I am responsible for that. But I was thinking more of my people's eagerness to meet you than how it would seem from your position, and that is my fault entirely. He put a gentle hand on Christian's shoulder. Christian looked up at him gratefully. The strain on his fledgling's face was evident. From a touch of minds, he realized that Christian did not know how to tell them what they all were. His fears bounced from them simply not believing him to them believing, but loathing them or... And Christian thought this the worst possibility, that they would blame Julian for this. He believed his best friend had already blamed himself too much already. Balthazar glanced at Julian, who also looked like he wanted to get up and start pacing. Julian was perched on the very edge of the seat, and his muscles were tense. Damon's gaze was on Julian's stiff back, and a faint frown appeared on his lips.
Why do so many people live with you, Balthazar? I assume you would not have brought this many guests to a dinner party just for us.
Henry guessed.
Are they all your family?
Balthazar tensed a little. The problem with all these questions was that they danced around the reality of them being vampires. Until that was cleared up, he would be riding the line between truth and lies. In a way, Balthazar finally said, "We are not related by familial blood, but they are my family in all other ways." Elizabeth was frowning deeply.
Is this some sort of religious organization?
Balthazar was pretty sure she meant cult by religious organization, but knew that the word cult was always derogatory in connotation. But he guessed what she really felt. Nervous laughter bubbled up inside of him, because little did she know that vampires did have a religion, and the ultimate religious figure was leaning against his mantelpiece. But he told her, "Absolutely not. I am a long-lapsed Catholic. In truth, I don't know what I believe in." Balthazar's gaze slid over to Damon. He was starting to think maybe he did want to believe in something, and this being was someone he could put faith in. But he tried steering the subject away from all of that by asking, "How is the food?" But Elizabeth was not to be deterred.
It's delicious, but I don't understand why all these people live with you then. And how do you and Damon know one another?
Would you believe that he opened a portal between worlds and streamed in here as a pack of wolves? No, you wouldn't believe it unless you saw it. I didn't even believe it. I understand your confusion. The thing is that we have gone past a very simple yet difficult truth that must be revealed to you, Balthazar said. He got down on his haunches beside the chair that Christian was in. Do you want me to tell them? I can tell them. You don't even have to be here when I do, but it must be done. Christian's eyes went wide. He saw a momentary flicker of hope that he could leave the room and perhaps avoid their bad reaction to finding out what he really was now. But his Christian was too strong to do that. Christian shook his head.
No, I want to be here, but I don't think I can do it. I don't want you to do it. They'll blame you, and no one is to blame. Julian, where do we start? How? I thought I knew, and...
He let out a pained laugh.
I'm always the logical one about things, but I can't seem to find any comfort in facts right now.
Julian rose from his chair and went over to Christian as well.
This is my fault, all of it. I'll tell them.
Both Henry and Elizabeth were looking between the boys, unease writ large on their worried faces.
It's not your fault, Julian. It's amazing what we found, what we are, what all of them are. I just can't...
He turned towards his parents.
I want you to see that. I so want you to see...
Honey!
Elizabeth was about to get up to hold her son, but Julian gestured for her to sit down.
Wait, just wait,
Julian said, likely guessing that they might not want to be so close after the big reveal. Julian looked at Damon for a moment as if gaining strength. He let out a long breath and smiled at the two people who had been his parents for over a decade.
We found the city of Palestone,
Julian said simply. Henry let out a little cough laugh.
Wait a minute. That's what your mother called the abandoned vampire city.
Yes, except it wasn't abandoned. Not altogether.
Julian slowly lifted a hand towards Damon.
Damon was asleep there, in a deep, deep sleep.
Asleep? Wait, what are you saying here, Julian?
Henry asked. He spread his hands towards everyone in the room, including Sophia, who had situated herself by a tray of canapes.
We found the vampires.
Elizabeth let out a short, sharp laugh.
Oh, Julian, you're kidding. This isn't the time for jokes like this.
I don't think he's kidding, dear,
Henry said slowly, his eyes fixed on Julian without blinking.
Julian, I know you believe that such things exist, but I think that belief is being taken advantage of.
I will show them, Julian, Damon said suddenly.
Show us what?
Elizabeth turned in her chair to look at him. Damon pushed off the mantle with a slow, graceful movement. His eyes glowed like the red embers of a fire. His blood-red lips parted to show his teeth and his fangs as they extended from the roof of his mouth. Those things, in addition to his black hair and ghostly white skin, signaled vampire so strongly that no one could have missed it. Henry and Elizabeth did not. Henry was out of his chair and by his wife in a moment. She remained seated. Whether too shocked or frightened to move, Balthazar did not know.
This is some kind of trick,
Henry said.
It's impressive, I grant you, but there are no such things as vampires.
It's not a trick. You know it's not.
Julian told them, his hands clasped together in front of him so tightly that his knuckles were white.
Julian, the fangs could be implants, the eyes could be contacts, and...
The howling began at that moment, cutting Henry off. First it was one howl, mournful and wild and seeming to come from outside. Then there was another, and another, and another, until all one could hear were these blood-chilling howls. They filled the entirety of the room. Damon's eyes glowed an even more sulphurous red, and then he spread his arms to the side. He became a negative image as wolf after wolf jumped out of him and into the room. Elizabeth let out a shrill cry of fear and clutched her husband. Henry curled protectively around her. Neither of them looked away from Damon. More than 100 wolves were in the room, brushing against their legs, swirling around chairs and tables. More than a few were pushing their heads under Julian's hands for petting, which he obliged, even as he watched Christian's parents with fear in his eyes. But then a single white wolf, with Damon's blazing red eyes, separated itself from the pack and approached the thorns. Elizabeth rose up from her chair and took a step towards it. Henry tried to hold her back, but she gently shook him off.
No, Henry. I must know,
she said. With a shaking hand, she reached for Damon. He did not growl at her or bare his teeth, but just waited. Slowly, she lowered her hand down on top of the soft, white head. Her fingers flexed in his fur.
He's real. Oh, God, Henry, he's real,
she whispered. Her husband slowly reached over for another of the wolves, this one black as night, but also with those red eyes, and barely brushed a hand over his back before snatching his hand away.
Henry, Elizabeth, this is no trick,
Julian repeated.
But if he's a vampire, how can he turn into wolves?
Elizabeth asked as she petted Damon's head. There are 11 vampire bloodlines, Balthazar said. Each has a different power, from mind control to shape-shifting and many, many in between. Damon has all of the gifts because he is our king.
King?
Henry's head lifted in surprise. Yes. Julian and Christian brought him back. At great price, Balthazar explained.
Brought him back to you?
Elizabeth caught on right away, as Balthazar knew she would. I am a vampire too, Elizabeth. In fact, he paused and licked his lips and placed a hand on Christian's shoulder and another on Julian's. In fact, other than yourselves, everyone in this room is a vampire. Understanding dawned on her face first, followed by Henry getting it and sinking down into the chair she had vacated with one hand on his forehead and a groan exiting his mouth.
You turned our boys into vampires?
She whispered. Balthazar nodded and answered simply, yes. Join us next time for episode 51, Leaving Home.
I just wanted to remind you about our audiobooks, which are also in the shop. The audiobooks for Everdark are downloadable MP3s of the uninterrupted and uncut chapters. As you have experienced, getting the uncut chapters is becoming more and more important as we get further into the story. We've had to make a lot of cuts recently to make it PG-13 for anyone who might find it. Since it's a vampire story, it gets gritty and graphically violent at times, and of course, quite sexy with two vampire couples. Look in the notes for the link to the audiobooks, or just join the membership and get access to all the uncut chapters published so far.
The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thelis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing.